Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Colonel JWilson, who is the commander of the 790 detachment at Tennessee State University. And of course, Colonel Wilson, before we had our commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about your students. But at the same time, we also understand that you've got a good program of keys to success that you generally deal with them. Let's talk about that, give you an opportunity to talk about what
All right. And many times I'm out on the road, and obviously being a senior officer, I get the opportunity to go out a lot. And most of the time, the individual, when they see me, how did you become a colonel? And, okay, what did it take? How did you get there? So I started thinking about it, and I said, you know, what are those successes, keys, or elements that got me to where I am? And I thought about it, and I came up with an acronym. You know, in the military, we always come with an acronym. So I'm gonna throw this acronym out to you, but I'm gonna explain what it means. The acronym is I care.
I care. I-C-A-R-E.
I-C-A-R-E. And the I in I care is image.
Okay.
It's how you present yourself, what you look like, you know, when you're out in public or when you are just out walking around. Because the image that you portray is the image that people are going to be left with. And I tell them, as an Air Force officer, when you walk outside that door, you represent the United States Air Force. You do not represent who you are, you represent the Air Force. And as a result, the image you portray to the American people, that is the image that they keep in their mind. So image is important. And the A in I care is attitude. Okay, and now let's back up one. C. Okay, commitment. You got to be committed, because in my business that we're in, if you're not committed, then someone could die, or the taxpayers' money could be misused, or that you're in it for the wrong reason. So commitment is very important in my mind for anything that we do in the United States military service together. And A is for attitude. You got to have the right attitude. Because I tell people all the time, if I walk in my office and I have a nasty attitude, you know, everyone in my office is going to have a bad day.
That's right.
Because I set the tone.
Very good.
Right. And I tell them, as young leaders, when they walk into their workplace, they set the tone. And so attitude is very important. And the R is responsibility. Do not shuck your responsibility. And I often give examples. You know, if the boss calls you in and say, you know what, in your section, this went wrong. Instead of saying, Sergeant Jones screwed this up or messed that up, say, hey, look, boss, I messed it up. I take the blame for it, and I will fix it. And I tell my young people, by doing that, your boss will respect you, and he'll give you more responsibility. But you must accept responsibility.
That seems to be a well-known military creed, that responsibility.
Absolutely.
That somebody else might have messed it up, but that responsibility comes back to you.
Absolutely. Because when everything else is said and done, you're the boss. You're the boss. And last but not least, the E in I care is enthusiasm. Have fun. Because as you and I talked earlier, I have a passion for what I do. I have a passion for my young people in my detachment. With that passion comes enthusiasm. And I would hate to think about going to a job that I did not like. So in summing up, I care. Image, commitment, attitude, responsibility, and enthusiasm. If you do those 5 things, you will succeed.
And they buy into that.
And yes, they do. And in fact, that is part of their operation plan. They buy into it because I preach it every day. So that's one of the keys. And I wanted to get that out because I think that's important. And you can take those same set of elements, you can transpose it into the civilian world, and it will work the same way.
It's human conditions, human situations that you apply these to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, and if I may move on a little bit, I would like to say, I'm going to put a plug in because you need the support from the university. And I have that support. Dr. James Hefner, our president, has really supported the Air Force ROTC detachment there. And as a result of that, we are able to get a lot of our students scholarships. And briefly, let me tell you the type of scholarships that we have. Well, for high school seniors, we have 4-year scholarship that they can apply for. All they have to do is go to the website. They can go out there and they can do the application, and then they'll come in for an interview. In fact, we are in the process of interviewing young high school students right now. Once they go through the interview, then they will meet a board, in which I will be sitting on one later on this month, and then we will find out what students going to get scholarships. Now, suppose you're in college, then what? No problem. Some of the things that you got to do. you got to be a full-time student.
Good.
You got to maintain at least a 2.5. And you got to be able to pass a fitness test. We call it a PFT, physical fitness test. And that's running the 2 miles and doing push-ups and sit-ups. Then you got to pass the Air Force Officer Qualifying Test. And you put all that together, you qualify for a scholarship. And we have a 3-year, 2-year scholarships. And also, because we're a historical black university, we have a scholarship that I can give minority students there at Tennessee State University. And all they have to do is meet those criteria, then they too can get a scholarship. But one thing that I'm finding a little difficult to do is trying to attract our kids into the program. I think there's a misnomer somewhere because most of the folks that we talk to only had parents, grandparents who were enlisted, so they never thought about the officers' side of the house. And they all think about the Army. When they talk about, oh, I want to be in the Army, I don't want to go out and do this. But it's got to break down that paradigm. And we are beginning to do that and make wave and get those young people in there. 'Cause once they get in, they realize, you know what, boy, I'm glad I decided to come this way.
You know, Colonel, I wanted to interrupt earlier because you raised a question that I've had an opportunity to deal with. When you go out speaking to some of these high schools, you see so many young people out there who could probably do well in college, but at the same time they feel that they don't want to be a burden upon their parents, and so therefore they take the position that I don't want to go to college and I don't want it, et cetera, et cetera. But what you're saying, and I had an opportunity quite recently to speak to youngsters that I identified immediately, about 7 or 8 that fell within that category. So what you're saying is that if these young people, high school graduates, good records and et cetera, even though they might not have any financial resources, that and they want to become patriotic and commit themselves to your program, that there's a possibility that they could go to college. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Well,
because if, in my mind, if a young person want to go to college, there are ways to get them there. And the only thing you have to give is a little time, a little commitment, a little heart, and be in shape, and you'll do just fine. Because once I get you there, I will mold you into being an officer. I will get you to that next step. That's my passion. That's my job.
Well, we certainly hope those young people that we are talking about, because as we said, we met them this past weekend, and we certainly hope that they're watching this show so that they can be encouraged, because sometimes it can be a difficult thing when you think about how much tuition is and et cetera. But Colonel, let me take this second commercial break, after which we'll come back and we'll give you an opportunity to talk about some other things. And we'll be back with you following this short commercial break.